Sheherazade, the legendary storyteller from 1001 Nights, is one of the most iconic female figures from literature. Through her wit, her charm and cleverness, she managed not to only save her life but also transform the heart of a ruthless sultan and leaving him hanging on the edge of curiosity. And this strategy for us offers profound lessons in femininity. That's why, even though Sheherazade is a fictional character, I have chosen her for this video. Because maybe you have heard of the Arabian Nights or 1001 Nights. This is actually a collection of different tales and stories from the Middle East, from the whole Arabian world, also from India. Many stories that you probably have heard about that are very famous belong to this collection of tales. For example, Aladdin and the Magic Lamp, or Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, or maybe you have also heard about Sinbad the sailor. All of this is part of 1001 Nights. But these stories are all told through the mouth of one woman. Basically, those stories are the stories that she tells to the Sultan. And her name is Sheherazade, and now you will learn her story and why it is so important and interesting and inspiring for us modern women with regard to the skill of creating mystery, storytelling, and softening a tyrant's heart. So let's start. So let me tell you her story. There was a king who was betrayed by his wife. He loved her very much, and then one day he discovered her with one of the servants. And he was so heartbroken and consumed by rage that he promised to never trust a woman again. He created a very cruel cycle in which every night he would marry a virgin, and then until dawn she would be executed. This happened for years and years, and the king was known as a very, very cruel and crazy, and he was so much in his rage, hating all women, that this basically happened to one woman after the other. And the one who was responsible to organizing one new woman or one new virgin for the king every night was his grand vizier. And the grand vizier had one daughter. And in the end there were no virgins left, and the vizier was really afraid of having to offer his daughter. But Sheherazade wanted to save her father, and she was also a very, very intelligent woman, and she had an idea, a strategy basically. So she convinced her father to go to the Sultan, and she became his next wife. In the first night, she began to tell the king a story. And that was the start of the stories within the story, 1001 Nights. And the story that she told him was so vivid, so rich, enchanting. And then when the sun began to rise, she stopped in mid-sentence. The king was, of course, hooked by curiosity, and he wanted her to continue, but it was already the day and the servants came and he had to start his day. So he decided to spare her life because he wanted her to finish the story. After all, he could still execute her the next day, right? So this is what happened. And she came back the next night. And then night after night she told him tales of magic, of betrayal, of wisdom, of transformation, each one ending with a cliffhanger, each one planting a seed in the king's heart. Because in those stories, it was not only about those magical characters and all those things that happened, the stories also have meaning. I don't know if you have read or know the stories of 1001 Nights, but they have. At first, he listened just out of obsession because he was simply curious. Then it was admiration, and finally love. All this happened in 1001 Nights, which is approximately 2 years and 9 months. That's a long time, but this is the story. And over those 1001 nights, Sheherazade managed to transform his heart and to kind of heal him from his hatred and rage and his hurt. She awakened his empathy, his humility, and his humanity. She didn't lecture him, she didn't beg him, she didn't fight him. She simply led him back to his own soul through the feminine art of storytelling. And this story is so old and so ancient, and I still think that it has something so modern, the art of storytelling and human psychology. And then, of course, the art of femininity, of feminine softness, of being able to touch someone's heart. And I want to now look at the psychological part of the emotional intelligence that Sheherazade displays in this story of 1001 Nights. She understood that stories bypass defenses, emotions change behavior, and mystery awakens attention. This is emotional intelligence at its most elevated form, intuitive, nurturing, and effective. And we as modern women can learn from this. And I don't want to imply that you should now try to convince or seduce or soften the heart of some psychopath. No, this is still a tale, it's a story, and in the story Sheherazade had no other choice. What I want to say is that we as modern women can learn something from the femininity aspect, and of course we can apply it in normal situations, in safe situations, with normal people, with healthy people, not with psychopaths. Okay, just a little disclaimer. And now we will look at the particular things that modern women can learn from this story. Number 1, never underestimate the power of your mind. Embrace your intellectual power. Feminine charm isn't just in appearance. It is also in how you think, how you speak, and how you hold space for others. Speak to the soul, not just to the mind. The stories of Sheherazade were not lectures. They were very emotional. They felt. That is how you create resonance. With your intellectual power, you can master the art of subtlety. You can use your communication skills and your intelligence. And on this channel, you can of course develop your communication skills and all of that. I have particular videos that go deeper into those topics, and more will come. So if you are not yet subscribed, now is a good time to click the notification bell and the subscribe button, so that you also will be notified when I upload a new video. Number 2 of what modern women can learn: creating suspense and curiosity. This has to do with mystery. I have already talked about the art of mystery, or how mystery is so attractive. For example, the mystery mindset of Monica Bellucci. I will link this video down below so that you can rewatch it or watch it if you haven't seen it, because mystery is very attractive and very powerful. Sheherazade never rushed. She created suspense, and suspense is also seduction. Mystery is magnetic. So Sheherazade didn't reveal all at once when she told those stories. And she did it in a way in which she just gave the Sultan enough to be hooked and to listen, but not all of it. So there was still something that he wanted to know. And you can apply this technique to other things, to your normal life. When you are telling something about yourself, you can always keep something hidden, something untold. This is of course not so easy, but it is something that will always keep people hooked to you. It is also called feminine mystique, the art of leaving room to be discovered. It builds fascination. So what you can learn from that in sum is never reveal everything at once, and keep some things a little bit more mysterious. Point number 3 that we can learn: healing begins with understanding. In general, it is a sign of feminine power and very, very worthy and valuable to be able to have empathy. And I think this is also about empathy, because what Sheherazade does in that story is she saw beneath the pain of the king's cruelty, and she addressed that pain, not the anger. I mean, in the story it was obvious why the king was doing those things, even though it is totally crazy and from today's point of view, or from a realistic point of view, as I said, psycho. But let's just look at how she addressed the whole thing. She showed empathy, she addressed his heart. This is what a refined woman often does. She can see through ego. And that's why also a woman who is emotionally very developed will not fall that easily for people who are fake or have a bad character, because she will also be able to understand a little bit better what's going on. But it is good to have empathy. Empathetic people can read body language much more easily, can feel vibes and energies, and they can also see through things that other people cannot see through. And that's why this will make them much more attractive to all kinds of people, because they can also respond better to the heart. And in the end, this is what we all long for: to be understood, to be seen, etc. So this is the feminine aspect of this point that I want to emphasize here, and that I find very beautiful and very beneficial, and that Sheherazade is showing in this tale or in this story. And now number 4 that we can learn: subtlety over force. Even though it is also, or it might be seen as a little bit weak, but subtlety is not weakness. Subtlety is actually very, very strong and very powerful and very intelligent. You can be wise and warm, smart and sensual, poised and powerful. Softness is strength. Softness is what we often think about when we think about femininity, feminine behavior. And softness is also something that is very positive for most of us women, because we like to be soft. Our bodies don't like stress. Our bodies love the soft life. And softness is also something that we can use as a power, as our talent. It is not a contradiction to be subtle and soft, and at the same time very influential and powerful. And sometimes it is easier to bend in the wind than to stay rigid and break. This is basically also a metaphor that is about softness, flexibility. So in some situations it is advisable to be soft and subtle, and in others you might be loud and forceful. But always think twice and think about Sheherazade's story and reconsider if it might be more beneficial for you to be subtle and soft. And by the way, how do you like my outfit? It is actually for the video, so I of course wanted to get a little bit into the mood of 1001 Nights. Let's go on with another part of this video where I talk about the feminine archetype of Sheherazade. Because I have made a video about feminine archetypes a few months ago, if you haven't seen that, and also I have made a test that you can do to define your feminine archetype. I will link both videos down below so that you can do the test and learn about the feminine archetypes, the original ones. And now let's define what feminine archetype Sheherazade was, because she was a specific feminine archetype. So the archetypes that are embodied by Sheherazade are the mystic, also known as the healer in some specific definitions of feminine archetypes, and also the enchantress, who is also known as the lover. She also has a little bit of the wise woman. And I think that this combination fits very well, and it really describes her archetype. And it's also very interesting archetype, because the lover combined with the mystic and the wise woman is very attractive. It is some kind of Monica Bellucci type. It is a woman that doesn't lead with force, but with depth, with discernment, and with devotion. She is sensual, but not vulgar. She is soft, but not weak. And she reminds us that true influence doesn't come from domination. It comes from self-awareness, from connection, and from understanding the human nature. So Sheherazade is kind of the very embodiment of what I teach here on this channel. It is the power of graceful communication, elegant posture, an alluring presence, and the timeless beauty of a well-cultivated mind. So my dear, if you feel drawn to the kind of wisdom of women like Sheherazade, I am preparing another video about a very famous woman who is a real woman from history, Sultan, because I am currently watching a Turkish telenovela about her, about the Ottoman Empire and his harem. And Sultan is a kind of Sheherazade of the real world, but a little bit different. In any case, this will be a very interesting video, so really turn on notifications if you haven't already, so that you don't miss this one. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, like and share, subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye bye!